The world of high society and ancient institutions often presents a flawless facade to the public, a carefully curated illusion of duty, honor, and seamless tradition. Yet, behind the heavy gilded doors and beneath the surface of meticulously planned public appearances, a storm of unprecedented proportions has been quietly gathering momentum. For months, whispers have circulated through the historic corridors of power, hinting at a deep and brewing crisis that threatens to reshape the public perception of figures who once held the unquestioned affection of millions. Today, those whispers have transformed into a tangible sense of urgency, as seasoned observers and legal insiders alike brace for an imminent revelation that could dismantle years of carefully constructed narratives. In the picturesque and serene setting of County Carlow, located within the heart of the Republic of Ireland, exclusive dispatches are emerging from those who occupy the inner circles of knowledge. These insights suggest that a monumental decision, meticulously drafted by a single judicial hand, is poised to be handed down in a matter of days, perhaps even hours. This impending judgment does not merely represent the conclusion of a standard legal dispute. Rather, it stands as a critical juncture that could permanently expose the profound disconnect between public declarations and private realities. To understand the gravity of the tension currently gripping the atmosphere, one must look back to the events of earlier this year, a period that feels like an entirely different epoch, given the sheer volume of subsequent drama, yet occurred a mere matter of months ago. It was during those intense proceedings that a prominent figure, who once walked the global stage with immense reverence, found his credibility severely compromised under the unyielding scrutiny of the legal process. The assertions that had been confidently put forth, claims of absolute integrity, declarations that any private information published by the media could only have been obtained through systemic and unlawful means, began to fray under the weight of cross-examination. For a long time, the narrative presented to the public was one of a crusading protagonist fighting against an invasive and unscrupulous media machine. However, as the wheels of justice ground forward, a vastly different picture began to take shape, one characterized by a shocking level of inconsistency and convenience. The tension surrounding this imminent judicial announcement is further magnified by the realization that the upcoming document is a single definitive civil judgment, not a jury verdict, meaning the responsibility rests entirely upon the shoulders of a single prominent judge who has previously navigated the complex intersection of public interest and private rights. As the countdown to this release begins, the anticipation within media and legal circles has reached a fever pitch, with rumors suggesting that the legal teams on both sides have already been alerted to the ultimate outcome. If you wish to stay informed as this extraordinary situation unfolds and receive the latest deep dive analyses into these rapidly developing events, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and join our growing community of discerning viewers who appreciate thorough, uncompromised reporting. The unraveling of this narrative is not merely a localized event. It is a global spectacle that speaks to the very nature of trust, accountability, and the consequences of weaponizing personal grievances on a public stage. The impending judgment is believed by many to be the hidden catalyst behind a spectacular and highly publicized breakdown of plans that occurred over the recent weekend, a collapse that has left organizers and royal households alike in a state of sheer bewilderment. For months, complex negotiations and meticulous planning had been underway to facilitate a high-profile return to the United Kingdom, an itinerary that was meant to showcase philanthropic commitment and a celebration of resilience. The schedule was packed with significant engagements, including a major address at the prestigious Chatham House, a poignant visit to the historic Chelsea Hospital, and a central role in the grand opening ceremonies of a celebrated international sporting event designed to honor wounded servicemen and women. This carefully choreographed rollout was officially communicated to the global media via a detailed operational note, outlining a precise rundown of appearances and engagements that suggested a seamless and triumphant tour. Yet, less than 24 hours after this comprehensive schedule was shared with the world, the entire apparatus began to fracture in spectacular fashion as conflicting reports and sudden threats to pull the plug on the entire venture began to leak to major publications. The sudden shifts in narrative and the abrupt introduction of conditions have exposed a profound level of volatility behind the scenes, leaving the public to wonder what could possibly cause such a rapid and chaotic reversal of intentions. As the pieces of this intricate puzzle begin to fall into place, it becomes increasingly clear that the drama observed on the surface is merely a symptom of a much deeper, far more complex psychological and legal crisis unfolding in the shadows of luxury and privilege. The absolute core of this gathering legal storm lies in the extraordinary contradictions that emerged during the courtroom proceedings earlier this year, moments that effectively shattered a carefully maintained public persona. For years, the narrative was built on an uncompromising stance that any private information appearing in the press could only have been obtained through systemic, unlawful means, such as phone hacking and illicit surveillance. This absolute certainty, however, met a spectacular and highly publicized dismantling when a series of historic text messages was entered into evidence, exposing a completely different reality. These communications, exchanged roughly 2 decades ago with Charlotte Griffiths, a highly prominent and influential journalist at the Mail on Sunday, revealed a remarkably familiar, light-hearted, and even flirty relationship. The documentation showed the exchange of playful nicknames, with the high-profile claimant being referred to as Mr. Mischief, a moniker he had vehemently denied under oath ever receiving. The messages were famously signed off with the playful initials CG string, a detail that introduced an undeniable element of personal intimacy that completely contradicted the narrative of a hostile, distant media. This revelation was not merely embarrassing, it completely undermined the legal thesis that the inner circle had been entirely leak-proof and that the press had no legitimate avenues of communication. By demonstrating that direct, informal lines of contact existed between the high-profile figure and senior tabloid journalists, the defense managed to cast a profound shadow of doubt over the entirety of the claims, transforming a high-minded crusade into a deeply compromised legal quagmire. The strategy grew even more problematic and controversial when it dragged other highly respected members of the media landscape into the witness box. Among them was Judge Nicklin, an exceptionally established and formidable journalist who has long served as a prominent voice in royal reporting, currently holding the prestigious position of royal editor for Vanity Fair. The decision to target a professional of her stature was viewed by many seasoned observers as a catastrophic miscalculation, particularly given her widely respected and courageous public battle with cancer, an ordeal she had written about with immense dignity. To force a journalist who had navigated such intense personal adversity onto the stand to defend historic, routine reporting practices was widely perceived as remarkably ill-advised and unnecessarily aggressive. Furthermore, the foundations of the legal case were heavily criticized for their reliance on highly questionable sources, including individuals with past convictions for unlawful information gathering. This reliance on compromised figures to build a case centered on absolute ethical purity created a profound sense of tension and skepticism within the courtroom. As the legal community awaits the single civil judgment from Judge Nicklin, who has previously presided over high-stakes intellectual property disputes involving the family, The prevailing expectation is that the ruling will be devastatingly negative, potentially exposing a complete failure to validate the broad, sweeping accusations of systemic illegality. This looming judicial setback is inextricably linked to the chaotic and volatile events that unfolded over the recent weekend, which saw the spectacular unraveling of a planned return to the United Kingdom. The sequence of events began on Friday evening when an official office dispatched a highly detailed operational briefing note to selected media outlets. This document was a precise, confidently framed itinerary of an upcoming tour, showcasing a series of high-profile philanthropic engagements designed to reinforce status and public relevance. The schedule included a major address at the prestigious Chatham House, a formal visit to the historic veterans at the Chelsea Hospital, and a central appearance at the opening ceremonies of the Invictus Games. Behind the scenes, additional plans were being actively briefed to certain publications, including a highly sensitive and emotionally charged visit to the final resting place of Princess Diana at the Althorpe estate. This specific plan had already raised eyebrows among astute observers who noted that the estate was scheduled to be closed to the public during those exact dates, suggesting a highly coordinated, private event intended to secure footage for an upcoming documentary marking the 30th anniversary of the late princess's passing. The entire rollout was designed to present an image of a seamless, triumphant, and deeply meaningful return to British soil, carefully choreographed to maximize positive global coverage. However, a mere 20 hours after this detailed itinerary was shared with the press, the entire narrative flipped in a remarkably cynical fashion. A sudden wave of leaks flooded major publications, threatening that the entire tour might be abruptly cancelled because the family had been denied a comprehensive state security package by RAVEKey, the government's official executive committee for the protection of royalty and public figures. The profound contradiction in this sudden shift was immediately apparent to anyone who scrutinized the original Friday evening briefing note. Within that very document, the operational team had included guidance explicitly acknowledging that they did not currently possess a formal risk management board assessment, which is the mandatory mechanism required to unlock official state protection. Therefore, on Friday night, the organizers were fully aware that no state security package was in place, yet they proceeded to announce the grand tour anyway. The sudden theatrical display of alarm and the threats to cancel the trip on Saturday morning revealed that the entire sequence of events was a deliberate, high-stakes attempt to pressure the household and the state apparatus into making an exceptional intervention, effectively utilizing public pressure to override established government protocols. As this administrative battle raged, reports began to surface regarding the intense emotional toll unfolding within a luxury resort in Portugal, where the family has been staying near close relatives, including Princess Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank. Sources close to the situations described an atmosphere of profound anxiety, paranoia, and deep distress, with accounts of tearful, cracking phone calls as the reality of the unyielding state position became clear. The fundamental truth, which has been established through multiple unsuccessful court challenges over the past half-decade, is that automatic, taxpayer-funded state security is strictly conditional on being a full-time working member of the royal family residing within the United Kingdom. This policy is not based on an absence of threat or a lack of understanding regarding the unique risks faced by high-profile figures, risks that were arguably exacerbated by the reckless public disclosure of military details in a recent memoir. Rather, it is a matter of strict administrative law and eligibility. The continuous effort to portray the maintenance of this long-standing status quo as a shocking, sudden betrayal represents a profound disconnect from reality, turning a routine regulatory boundary into a source of intense family friction and public melodrama. The true tragedy of this escalating confrontation extends far beyond the immediate legal fallout or the public relations maneuvering of a single high-profile couple. To fully comprehend the gravity of the situation, one must look at the real victims of this ongoing drama: the extraordinary servicemen and women, the wounded veterans, and the tireless organizers who have spent the last 2 years working to put the Invictus event together. This tour, which was confidently announced to the global media with an elaborate operational schedule, was supposedly designed to honor the immense sacrifices of those who have given their minds and bodies in service to their countries. Yet, as the administrative conflict over personal security intensified, these noble causes were instantly relegated to a secondary position, serving as little more than a convenient backdrop for an ongoing family grievance. The staff at the Chelsea hospital, the patients who prepared for a meaningful visit, and the countless volunteers who rearranged their lives on the strength of official promises found themselves discarded in a heartbeat. There is something profoundly objectionable about utilizing the immense moral authority of a charitable institution as a protective shield against media criticism, only to treat that very institution as entirely disposable the moment personal demands are not met. The international sporting event, which was created to showcase resilience and unity, has increasingly been overshadowed by personal ego, transforming what should be a celebration of heroism into an extension of a relentless public melodrama. This pattern of behavior reveals a deeper, structural approach to relationships and institutional duties, where personal grievances are consistently placed above the collective good. For years, the public has observed a series of elaborate, carefully choreographed rollouts, followed by abrupt reversals, with blame invariably cast upon external forces, whether it be palace functionaries, government committees, or the media. This dynamic was vividly illustrated in a highly controversial memoir, which detailed numerous instances where routine institutional boundaries and historical family disagreements were reframed as deeply personal attacks. From intense disputes regarding official military regulations on facial hair during a royal wedding to historical accounts of social miscalculations, the narrative has consistently avoided personal accountability, choosing instead to portray an environment of continuous hostility and victimization. The reality, however, is that administrative rules apply universally, and the expectation that ancient state protocols or government security committees should be modified to accommodate personal status represents a fundamental misunderstanding of public service. By continuously shouting about a perceived lack of protection on a global stage, the level of personal risk has arguably been heightened through sheer public exposure, a counterproductive strategy that stands in stark contrast to the quiet, disciplined security measures typically employed by public figures. The emotional stakes of this conflict have had a devastating impact on the family dynamic, particularly concerning the relationship with King Charles III. In an effort to facilitate a peaceful resolution and maintain a connection with his grandchildren, the monarch extended a significant olive branch, offering to provide secure accommodation within a royal palace, such as St. James's Palace or Buckingham Palace. This gesture, made at a considerable personal and professional cost, was met not with appreciation but with a high-stakes attempt to pressure the monarch into intervening in an independent government security decision. To weaponize a father's natural affection and his deep longing to see his grandchildren as leverage in a bureaucratic dispute is a maneuver that has caused immense distress within the household. Despite navigating significant personal health challenges, the king has remained resolute, steadfastly refusing to abuse his constitutional position by overriding the established protocols of the British state. This principled stance, while entirely correct from a constitutional perspective, has left the family dynamic in ruins, as the refusal to capitulate to these emotional demands resulted in a sudden, theatrical threat to withdraw from the entire planned itinerary. As the legal community prepares for the release of the written judgment by Judge Nicklin, the strategic timing of these recent leaks becomes increasingly apparent. A devastatingly negative ruling in the civil case would represent a monumental blow to a brand that has already seen its public approval ratings collapse from over 70% to historic lows. By creating a chaotic narrative surrounding security concerns over the weekend, an alternative excuse has been preemptively constructed to explain a potential absence from the public eye, avoiding the humiliation of a highly publicized legal defeat. The public, however, has grown increasingly discerning, recognizing the profound disconnect between lecturing global audiences on the universal nature of service while simultaneously treating long-standing public institutions as entirely disposable. The commercial ventures that once promised hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue through global streaming platforms and publishing deals have faced significant challenges, as audiences and corporate partners alike tire of a narrative centered on historic grievances rather than forward-looking philanthropy. The current situation represents a profound turning point, where the choices made in the pursuit of personal validation have led to an unprecedented level of isolation. While official spokespersons continue to hint that a brief single-day appearance in the United Kingdom remains a possibility, the long-term damage to credibility is already done. The optics of rewarding continuous public attacks with official royal accommodation would be deeply unpopular with a public that values duty, consistency, and quiet resilience. If high-profile figures wish to engage with charitable causes on British soil, they must learn to navigate the same administrative and logistical realities as any other private citizen, rather than demanding exceptional treatment from a state they chose to leave behind. The upcoming days will undoubtedly provide definitive answers as the judicial ruling is handed down and the ultimate fate of the planned tour is decided. But the broader lesson remains clear. True service is measured by sacrifice and commitment to others, not by the status and security afforded to oneself.